So as we get older, like Taylor's 27 years old, but a lot of our conversations are about when she's 47. Like, what are we going to do when you're 47? What are we going to do when you're 57? You know, and I'm kind of there, so I understand. But you and I both know the beauty of the mountains. You know, we have the lovely opportunity to live in such a beautiful place. Leaves are changing. The air is fresh. It's quiet. That's another reason why people want to engage in some strength training, because you don't want to lose that connection to what takes us into the mountains.
You're listening to Endurance Unlimited, a TrainingPeaks podcast for athletes and coaches, no matter what you're training for. Dial in those workouts with deep insights and cutting-edge science from the most prominent voices in the endurance and hybrid sports world. My guest today is Erin Carson, who is an NSCA Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist and an NASM Certified Personal Trainer. Her primary focus is on strength training for endurance athletes. Erin's programs are anchored in science-based fundamentals of mobility and strength training. She works with a vast array of athletes, including Ironman elites such as Rudy Von Berg and Tim O'Donnell, Olympians like Taylor Knibb, ultrarunners including Team Solomon and Courtney Dauwalter. Erin is actively engaged in the endurance community as an athlete, where she has competed in several 70.3 World Championships. I hope you enjoy this episode where we dive into the world of strength training, specifically for endurance athletes. Erin Carson, you are the coach to the stars that is not front and center enough. You do so much for so many great top-rated athletes, and it's such, an honor to have you on the show today.
It is an honor to be here. You're one of my favorite people. You have one of my favorite companies, and you support so many people around the world. And it's just a blast to have this conversation today.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks so much. Why don't you give us a little background in terms of how you got into strength training and, made your way to Boulder, and just a little brief background, please.
I can bang that out in less than 60 seconds. So I was a skinny, talented basketball player. Yeah, kind of. But
on the tall side.
Too skinny. If anybody's watching the WNBA playoffs, basketball can be a really rough sport. And I was a very talented, skilled player, but wasn't strong enough to compete at the international level. And I was young, so it makes sense. I was age appropriate. But the recommendation to me as a young athlete was to strength train. And this is a long time ago. This is when strength training really wasn't part of the conversation. But it was a great recommendation for me. So I dug in at the age of 15, 16 years old to enhance athletic performance, and more than anything, enhance myself as an athlete, build some muscle. And at the time I was dating a football player, so it was perfect. We could go to the gym together. And so started from an athletic perspective, saw some really nice gains in how durable I became as a two guard at the international level, definitely on the provincial level because I'm Canadian. And my playing just got better, and my opportunities got better. Got recruited to play college basketball, the Division I level. Chose the University of Colorado for a few different reasons, but primarily because Boulder is exceptional place to build a life. Got a degree at the University of Colorado in kinesiology, the science of human movement. I played international professional basketball for a year and a half in Europe. Wow. Came back as an assistant basketball coach at Tulane University, and then finished my coaching career the next year, so it was very brief, at the University of Nebraska. And anybody that's really familiar with strength and conditioning knows a gentleman's name named Boyd Epley. And Coach Epley started the NSCA, the National Strength and Conditioning Association. They also know, if you're just a little bit older, that Nebraska was the powerhouse of college football.
Definitely.
And that was really, truly born because of their attention to detail with strength and conditioning. And they built football team in the weight room. And I was privileged enough to spend time in that weight room, and it set the stage for the form and the design of training facilities around the country. Having been at the University of Colorado, I knew what CU was training in. And that training room was crap. And that showed that they just didn't value it enough to become the kind of football program they are now. And it really began in the strength and conditioning arena. And I just had that keen curiosity and attention to want to do more with strength and conditioning for sport performance. At the time, I didn't know it was going to be endurance sports, but I felt it in my own performance. I saw it in high level collegiate sports. And then I was able, as I settled into Boulder, to meet a lot of really high performance endurance athletes and then work in a gym in a capacity as a strength coach and personal trainer, and kind of evolved from there. So that's who I am. And that's kind of how it all happened.
Yeah. So it was just a natural progression from kind of the football field and that gym to you're in Boulder, and it was just the scene. You're now addicted to endurance, and that kind of just came naturally for you to start working with the triathletes, or how did that evolve?
Well, that's kind of a fun story, actually. Watching endurance athletes try to function in the weight room was step one. And watching like what they were doing, and they were so careful not to build a lot of muscle, and so they'd pick up a 2-pound weight, and then they'd pick up a 5-pound weight, but they were always so careful not to lift weights. And I'm like, that's not really going to build strength, but good for you for coming up here. Yeah. And then I started targeting the audience as I became more confident and I became smarter. I'm addicted to education and found a lot of good mentors, taught myself a lot, started formulating a philosophy on how I thought I could help. And my first reach out was really to Tim O'Donnell. So Timothy, world-class triathlete, one of the most brilliant dudes I know, and invited him to come and try a session with me. And he liked my approach because my approach wasn't very traditional. It was about movement. It was about strength in movement. And when he went to train and get on the bike or go for a run or a swim, he felt better. He felt more open. He felt that he could move better. And so he came back for more, but he also told his wife, Marinda Carfrey, that she should maybe talk to me as well. And so my kind of beginning of really coming into world-class performance and world-class athletes was Tim and Rinny.
You started at the top.
I did. That's kind of my personality. So
only in Boulder.
But it was super fun. So I was able to work with T.O. Through his podium performance in Kona, which is very difficult, and so much mad respect for that competitive field that he was able to really, I train them still, but I trained them for a decade of their professional careers. Saw Rinny, worked with her coach, Siri Lindley, as the strength coach for Rinny to support their work that they did together for 2 world championships in Kona. Out of the 3, they had won 1 before me. So that was kind of not intimidating to come into that beautiful team. So it started there. And then Kara Goucher, Kara and Adam, I worked with them for a while. That went really well. Worked with them right up to the pandemic. And they work with Chris Lee now over at Kinesis Integrated, another super smart strength coach. He's a good guy. But I don't work with them anymore. But that learned a lot with Karen and Adam. We're buffs, so we all like to support each other. And now it just keeps evolving. So it's really, I've built a good life and have had a lot of fun.
Well, I've been to Ironman, Hawaii, Kona, I don't know, maybe 12 times or so. And one of my biggest memories, most fond memories, is sitting with you on the pier, getting ready for the swim start. The sun is just rising over the mountain there, and just a beautiful place to be. And you are sitting right next to me. We're on the waterfront, and in comes a notification, a TrainingPeaks notification. So tell us about that. That was such a cool thing.
Yeah, it was really funny because we were just enjoying such a brilliant life experience together, and then boom, Taylor Knibb, I've had the privilege of working with Taylor and her team for over 5 years, and yeah, for some reason, her watch just downloaded into the phone, and we got her whole warm up before the swim.
Yep.
And I was like, Dirk, check it out. This is so amazing.
I know she mentioned how sometimes after the bike, it ends up uploading during the marathon too, and you'll get a notification.
It's such a brilliant product because of that. I mean, it was super fun, and what a brilliant day that was 2 years ago. And here we are on the doorstep of probably one where we have a little bit more understanding of what Ironman is about. Like that was our first experience with Ironman, and Taylor's obviously a proven entity at the middle distance, and we're working our way through the journey of being a professional. So super fun.
I mean, it's amazing to think about her year to year focus. It can dramatically change. Amazing. As you mentioned, 70.3 world champ, then goes to Kona, gets fourth, I believe, not that far back, 10 minutes back. It was a tight podium. Then focus on the Olympics basically from there. She wins USA cycling, time trial, nationals. So she qualifies on the road and, a triathlon. So last year was all about Paris. That had to be amazing and special. And now full circle back to Ironman. Let's improve on fourth place. Great start. Obviously getting fourth in Ironman can be, career making right there. She's focused on the win. Kona's around the corner here. You're going out there to support her. Tell us what the last month and a half has been like working with her and in this final kind of taper phase.
Well, I don't know that we taper. We actually, from my perspective, we don't taper. Yeah. I mean, her sport coach is Dan Lorang.
Okay.
I know that they make adjustments, and I know Dan is brilliant, and most importantly, that Taylor trusts Dan. And so we stick to the program, stick to the plan. And she has a really strong team of keeping Taylor healthy, focused, and happy is kind of what our goal is. She's brilliant. She's so smart as a human. I almost wish her to have less insight on things sometimes and just not have to think so much. But, she's really in tune with what's happening. She's compliant. She's confident. And so whatever Dan guides us into an A race or one that we really want to do well in, we just do what we're told. And so right now for us, we just keep doing what we've been doing. Taylor handles training very, very well. She doesn't get bored. She understands what we're doing, and she comes in ready to work. Like, I don't think I've ever seen her not ready to work when she comes into the gym. So everything we're doing now is very similar to what we were doing 6 months ago, to be honest. She's any athlete that is in the top 1% of their sport, small changes can have big impact and influence in outcomes. So we are I'm very cautious on no big changes, little changes, little variabilities that keep her body guessing a little bit, I guess would be a good way to describe it. But for the most part, pretty predictable. And
so
not a lot of
some more details. Is she doing strength work 3 days a week? What's the focus? What's that look like? A little more behind the scenes.
Yeah, Taylor does mobility daily. She has a daily mobility, not just from me, but also from her run. She has a run specific coach in Lawrence Van Langen, and Lawrence is very in tune with where Taylor needs to just keep paying attention, that we never lose focus on what she needs. She's coming in the strength training area twice a week. And every now and then we'll sneak a third session in, but it's like 2.5. We won't do a full session. If we sometimes I'll call Dan and I'm like, Dan, I think we might need to back off just a little bit. Let's bring it down to 45 minutes for a week or so. Just give her even that 15 minutes, again, with a top tier athlete, 15 minutes less work can have a big impact. But for the most part, I feel very confident that Dan has come to trust what's happening in the weight room. Lawrence, also Julie, her swim coach, Julie Dibbins. We have a really good team where we trust each other, and that means a lot to me. And so that and in turn Taylor trusts us. So she comes in ready to work. She does what she's told, and yeah.
So you kind of have a heads up in terms of what's the overall workload, the programming for next week, for example. So you know how to like kind of fluctuate a little bit with the program as it ebb and flows.
Yeah, that's why it's always important to me, and any athlete that I work with one-on-one, the first thing I ask them, will you make me an assistant coach or a shared coach on TrainingPeaks? So yeah. I don't change anything. I don't comment in there unless it's strength specific.
Okay.
But I love to see that the workouts are being done well to completion, that the athlete is happy, that the fatigue loads, I'm pretty familiar with the training scores, and that I'm not contributing to anything bad for that athlete. If they're tired, like sometimes I'll look at their TrainingPeaks and I'm going, wow, that kid's going to come in a bad mood. They've done huge work, right? But then they come in and they're snappy. Their step is snappy. Their personality is snappy. They're happy. And I'm like, okay, well, numbers might tell us one thing, but this human being is doing well. So we can carry on, so there's all the variables. But being able to see the work that she's doing is really helpful for me to make those little tweaks and expectations in the weight room and the strength program adjusted to make sure that we're not overcooking the athlete.
Yeah. And so how is that programmed within the week? How does she like to work in strength? Like on the rest days, after a long, easy day? What's that look like?
For years, I smile because we do different with Taylor than I've done with anyone ever. We do strength on her lighter days, her lighter work days, because her heavy days are so big. And there's an adaptive we don't want to impair her ability to adapt to a training session by adding a strength session on the same day. And that's a very important part of the conversation. So we do strength with Taylor on her swim only days. So she's swim and gym, and that's with the triathlon. So yeah, it has made me a little bit more open to do it that way. Cause I used to be very, make your hard days hard and your easy days easy. But in Taylor's case, this is working. I don't know that would work the same for everyone, but she has been able to recover very well and adapt and take time and, to continue to improve. And that's what's the most important thing.
Yeah, I've heard you speak before where you do have athletes that will do a long zone 2 and they'll actually come in and do a heavy lift, which is a short, maybe 20, 25 minute session, but that sometimes works well with athletes after like a long workout.
Agree. Yeah, no, it brings their personality, brings their muscle synapse. It brings everything right back to a really good place. With Tim and Rinny, we used to do that a lot. I'd go in on a Saturday afternoon after a long brick even and do a 20-minute lift, and we get a really nice hormonal response, and it's usually a happy response. It's a good mood response as well. So it's not just always hammering muscle for strength for the sake of strength. There's a lot more components to strength training than trying to get stronger. I know that sounds weird, but that's true.
Well, I also think about like a lot of the talk now is around durability, fatigue resistance. Is there potentially something around adding a short strength session after a long break, like you mentioned, which could aid with, durability, at the end of an Ironman?
Oh, 100%. Yep. And just that your body comes to expect a training load after a long bike ride, and you don't always need to run. You can hit that tissue that's other than running tissue, because we know that there's repetitive motion injury, right, from running. So let's come in and do some multiplanar movement. Let's come in and do some different kind of plyometrics that might be more lateral. Let's do some heavy lifting that is a different kind of stimulus. But yeah, it's good to find different stimulus.
Yeah. Well, I think most listeners in their heads, when they hear come in 20 minutes, heavy lifting, is like, bam, squat machine, like back squat, deadlifts. Like, I mean, that's really not where you're going. You can lift heavy in many different ways.
Yeah. Heavy's perceived, right? Depends on fatigue. And I think that's where I have been successful. And this is also any strength coaches that are watching this. I mean, you're going to build trust with coaches and with athletes, not by hammering them with exciting exercises and low training loads. Coaches don't care how much the athlete lifts. They care how they ride the bike well, or if they run well,
right?
And they can handle the training load. I don't measure the success of athletes in the weight room based on the number. So if TO comes in on a day when he's feeling pretty fresh and, for lack of a better word, kind of badass, and he wants to get after it, we might deadlift 250, 260 pounds. But then he comes in after a 3-hour bike ride, after a 20-hour training week, he might go 185, and his perception of that load is exactly what it was when it was 250. So you can't measure the success of a performance-based athlete in the weight room based on how much weight they lift, because the only thing that matters is that they progress and that they win races, because that's what they do for work. Winning is very important.
Yeah. I've heard you say in the past too, you need to stay in your lane. I mean, you're the strength coach, but the end result oftentimes is dictated by another coach, the head coach, Dan Lorang, and 100%. The end, goal is podium, win, Kona, not deadlift, whatever it may be. So keeping 100%. That perspective, and a lot of strength coaches need to keep that perspective more. So for those, there's some naysayers out there still, within endurance world that aren't lifting or haven't gotten that motivation, haven't quite done it yet. Sell me on why I should bring strength training into my program at any age of being an endurance athlete.
Well, first, every single person that we'll talk to I would answer them differently almost. But okay. I would say, if you're in this little sweet spot of your athletic performance and you are crushing it and you are not doing any strength training, then I would just go like, good for you. It's not a matter of if you will come into the arena of the gym. It's a matter of when. And I can use Sepp Kuss as a great example. So Sepp, I worked with Sepp the summer before he headed to Europe, when he was still at the University of Colorado. The goal for my work with Sepp was really to get him stronger in his upper back so he could be more comfortable in aero position. He's a great cyclist. He had no experience in the weight room. It blew my mind. So here's a kid, one of the best in the world, and he has shown how good he is. Even now, we didn't know, but now
he won the Vuelta. Yeah.
He's so good. And he hadn't done, in his development as an athlete, he hadn't done anything in the weight room. So it's not a requirement to be an exceptional endurance athlete to be proficient in the weight room. But as your training loads over years become more and more cumulative, you can only run so many miles. You can only ride so many miles. So how are we going to add stimulus into your athletic performance and into your overall physique to enhance performance? I could make a pretty good case that a stronger athlete, a more balanced athlete especially. So if you picture yourself on a bicycle, your front of your hips become very short. You become very quad dominant. You become very short hips, and all you want is more glutes. Well, as a strength coach who also understands movement, we would start to, like a lot of what we have done, Dirk, is just work outside of that cycling posture, open up the front side of the body, give you more time with a straight hip, a flat hip on the front side, so that we can enhance glute activation. So that when you do get back on the bike, we've done things in the strength training area that's allowed you to sit more comfortably on the bike and allowed you to have more muscle activation, not just so much quad dominance, that you can actually have this entire team of lower body strength Then we start talking, and I think on day one, we talked about rib cage expansion. We talked about the diaphragm and the muscles of respiration. Like, very few people talk about that. And I have I don't have any secrets. I'm at this stage of my career. I'm not going to say only my athletes get to work and think about the muscles of respiration. But why wouldn't you train that? Why wouldn't you consider that as an advantage? Yeah. So it's not a difficult, it's not difficult for me to convince somebody to come into the strength training room if I can get them to commit to 2 or 3 sessions, because typically they will feel better in their training after they have seen me, after they've done the work. And it's not that will last if they don't keep going, because it won't. But if you keep the consistency of the movements, the mobility, adding training loads, adding a training cycle that goes throughout the year, easier phases, harder phases, lighter phases, heavier phases. It shouldn't always be heavier. It shouldn't always be heavy. Yeah. But you never want to lose ranges of motion that can benefit you as an athlete. So daily mobility, really important. Hip motion, hip function, shoulder function, breath, and your ability to actually move your rib cage. All of these things need to be paid attention to over time. And we love sports. Like, I haven't met a lot of sad cyclists, because cycling, we can ride with injuries. It's just a lot different. Like, cyclists are different because we just have less variables that can hurt us. But have you ever met a runner who couldn't run? They are sad. They are sad people. Like, running and sport and the thing that we love, we don't want to lose that. So as we get older, like, Taylor's 27 years old, but a lot of our conversations are about when she's 47. Like, what are we going to do when you're 47? What are we going to do when you're 57? And I'm kind of there, so I understand. But you and I both know the beauty of the mountains. We have the lovely opportunity to live in such a beautiful place. The leaves are changing. The air is fresh. It's quiet. That's another reason why people want to engage in some strength training, because you don't want to lose that connection to what takes us into the mountains: our feet, our heads, our brains, our posture. We love the mountains. And that's why, getting involved with the Team Solomon, I know we might chat about that a little bit, but having a new sport for me, with the ultra runners and the mountain runners, oh my God, just start following them. Everybody, if you follow anyone on Instagram, follow the mountain runners, because the pictures and the images that they get to experience is blissful. It's just incredible.
Well, yeah, I've gotten to see you a bit more and chat more around the ultra running kind of marketplace, if you will. And you're probably Courtney Dauwalter's very first coach ever, which is a huge feather in your cap. But, helping her extend her career. She's such a phenom, and she can keep it going with maybe some more of your help. So that's awesome to see. But I love how you talk about mobility as well. I mean, I come from the cycling background. We definitely started lifting weights, in early 2000s, if you will. But now, like, I go to training camps and it's not just about lifting. It is about mobility. And there's the daily mobility routines that are happening. And that just, again, like, a cyclist doesn't really think about, they don't have like a wide range of motion. Like, the crank is only so big, 170, whatever it is. And that's your range of motion. Why do I need to work on mobility as a cyclist?
Well, that's going to be muscle balance and opportunities, because when you just sit on a bicycle, your glutes and your butt, your backside of your body basically becomes inhibited. So it's still working, but it's not optimally functioning. And that's usually in response to the tightness of the hip flexors. Yeah. So you're just seeing so many. Well, I think about aerodynamics, as cyclists. You mentioned with Sepp, and triathletes, and holding that position for an Ironman, whatever, 112 miles, that's a lot of people will lose minutes just simply because they can't coast downhill in that position, like literally coasting downhill. They have to stretch every single downhill, and that's the fastest moment in the entire race, and you're sitting up,
and you have this $12,000 aero bike that you're not taking advantage of. Hence,
exactly.
Right? Keeping that going. Talk to me about injury prevention. I mean, there's some amount of this is about injury prevention as well, right?
It really is, because, I mean, endurance athletes in general have the ability to overcome discomfort. They also have the ability to check out mentally. And so they're not paying attention all the time to how they look or feel when they're running, because they're just running or riding. When you really look at why an injury happens, it's usually because there's an imbalance, unless there's an acute event like a crash, and that's a whole different conversation. But if it's an injury that comes over time, it's usually going to be because we get out of balance. And so there are muscles that become dominant. Cycling, it's very easy to see the quads. I mean, in the day when the cyclists all had, massive quads, and their hamstring balance it's out of balance. It worked when they were on the bike, but it didn't work when they would try to stand up. They didn't need a bunch of upper body weight because their lower bodies were so strong. But now we know that comfort and being able to use upper body component on the bike, I think in the next few years, just from a health perspective, we're going to see cyclists get a little bit heavier. Great conversation right now on, watts per kilogram. But I think we will see some successful athletes in cycling who aren't super thin. The advantage to the durability and having a little bit of upper body strength and carrying a little bit of muscle is a healthy thing. So being able to do assessment, eyeball, and see an athlete it's not hard to spot athletes who are out of balance. And, I can use you, Dirk, as an example, because I really expected, we've known each other for quite a while, but when you came in and I looked at you differently because we were going to do a little bit of work together, I was super impressed, actually, because I think you're not stuck like a cyclist. Your head is not too far forward. Your thoracic spine doesn't carry a lot of kyphotic look to it, or kyphosis. You're really nicely balanced. So opening you up, we were able to progress you quite quickly. Not everybody's like that.
Well, I think as I get older too, I realize the value of diversity of being an athlete. And so I have kind of opposing sports between, winter sports versus my summer cycling activity. And that, as I get older, that becomes more and more important to kind of offset. Speaking of different sports, do you have different programming? I mean, we've been talking a lot about how this is all more or less how everybody needs the same thing, but you're working with Sophia Lockley, who's focused on the Olympics in Italy for cross-country Nordic skiing. That's a whole bunch of upper body. Obviously, core is important for every athlete, but she's got to have some good amount of strength upper body versus, Sepp Kuss. Yeah, it's okay to have a little bit of muscle, but that guy does not want to add a bunch of bench presses.
Right.
Do you look at sports differently?
Yes. And you have to look at athletes differently. Like Sophia is wonderful because she's so talented with her engine. Like her cardiovascular ability is exceptional. Her skill in her sport of Nordic sports and mountain running, she's just super talented. What is going to benefit an athlete like her is just a global strength. She doesn't need to train anything that looks like skiing because she spends a lot of time skiing. So what we want to do is be able to get her body into a posture, into a shape. And we talk about body shapes. If Sophia just is stronger because she's relatively lean, we just get her a little bit more strength and then just let her fly. But nothing looks like skiing. We know that the lats play a big part of that. The lat attaches to the rib cage. If we can work the muscles of respiration and the diaphragm, that's going to enhance lat activation and preservation of lats, because these are endurance sports. So when we're talking about sports that the last third of the race make the difference in who wins, everybody's going to get tired. we've solved a lot of problems with nutrition now in most of our endurance sports. I mean, what we're capable of doing, because the osmolality of nutrition, our ability to absorb and train our ability to absorb that, then it comes down to structure. Who structurally can hold up the best in the final third of the race? Yeah. That's the most important time. So Sophia, or any mountain runner or endurance athlete, the stronger athlete, in my opinion, the more balanced athlete is going to win these races, assuming they're all level of talent. So it's the time to take some time away from the skill sport and put you in the weight room in 30 to 40 minutes, or sometimes 20. You know, if we're measuring a lot of the recovery metrics or training loads, we can actually start to figure out which athletes we can cut back on some of their aerobic training and put that time in the weight room, and we will get a better outcome. So that's a pretty good way of thinking about it. We all know, a lot of people stay with me on a really frontline athlete kind of way. And I say that because I don't see them every week. They just do follow the program. But if their final 5K on an Ironman or a half Ironman, they feel tall and they feel like smiling and they're catching everyone else, then they call me and they like, this strength training program is crushing it. I felt great in the last 5K. And, you know, they're not going to win. They're not getting paid, but they feel great. And that's, to me, a really good reflection of the time that they spent doing the right things in the weight room.
Yeah. Well, I also think about, you know, we already mentioned it, durability, but I think about running downhill, especially in ultras, right? That oftentimes it's the downhills that kind of makes the selection of the podium more than the uphills. So that durability of that strength going downhill is such an important part that you can only get so much by running, right? You can enhance it more by going into the gym, as you're saying, but that's such an important part of trail running. Or in the marathon, there's hilly marathons too, of course.
Downhill running and technical downhill running. Remember, sport is new for me. Yeah. It excites me like none other. Technical downhill. So who's deciding how fast an athlete runs downhill? And I talk about the body like it's a bunch of different people in there. So the person who decides how fast you run downhill is the brain. The brain will always protect us, right? The central governor. Yeah. So the brain says, you have just enough brain power to put your foot in the right place, or you don't have enough brain power because you haven't hit your nutrition goals. You have enough elasticity in your tissue to be able to accept the downhill load. So you have to have the mental acuity. You have to have physical elasticity to be able to absorb. And then you have to have muscle balance, because what muscle does everyone complain about after they run downhill? Their quads, right? So if you have more help from the back, posterior chain, the backside of the body. So if you have a hill and you are running and your body position is like this, like your upper body is behind your feet when you're landing, you're basically putting the brakes on every single time you stop, you land. So every landing, your back here, your quads are just getting hammered. But if this is the hill and we can get you from this position to this position, and now you're Michaela Schifrin, you're going downhill and you're excited about going downhill, you're going to make some incredible time up on the competition. But that comes from strength in the posterior chain and a balance between quads and glutes. So that can be built in the weight room a little bit better than it can be built from hours of downhill running. You know, you can only recover from so much downhill running. So if I can talk to a strength coach or a sport coach, and I can say, I can help you get your athlete into a better downhill position, downhill running, they're usually tell me more. Like, how are we going to do that? So it's doable by finding more muscle balance, and it is a game changer in that sport. So it's pretty exciting. Like when your brain says go and says, yeah, hell yeah, let's go. Then the body, the only reason the brain says that is because the body's prepared unless there's some weird, weird. There are some weird athletes that where the brain says go and they shouldn't.
Yeah, it starts with the brain. I mean, I was out there at UTMB, and I was out there seeing those folks coming in at that 40-hour mark, and some of them,
God.
You know, it's all they can do just to. They can't even say thanks when you you know, they're just, some of them are going downhill backwards too. Yeah, that's all they can maintain. It's just walking backwards downhill. So, I know you've kind of like mentioned this throughout, but you know, I want to pull it all together in terms of like tips for beginners. Where might they start? How many times a week? You know, I mean, so often we think it needs to be 3-4 days a week, you know, an hour each session and lift heavy and go to the gym. So I think you're not all about that. So give us some kind of words of wisdom about getting started.
I really think the most important thing is to know who you are. So, you know, we can use me as an example. I've been an athlete my whole life. I know I'm a good athlete. I've had success. There's 3 main body types. Ectomorph is a very skinny person who might have a hard time putting on muscle. A mesomorph is somebody who came out of the womb with muscle. Like we all know those guys. They don't do anything, but they look incredibly athletic and they have muscle. That's a mesomorph. And then there's an endomorph, and they're a little bit more of a round body type, and they also have trouble establishing muscle. So you have to know who you are. And I have developed into an ectomesomorph. So you can be a little bit of both as well. So know who you are. And then you start to identify what you want to do. Like, I want to go to Mallorca for 2 weeks and be able to ride a bike every day for 2 weeks. Well, then the program needs to meet the demands of what the outcome wants to be. If I, Erin Carson, want to win a world championship in triathlon, I better hire the best run coach in the world, because I'm never going to win that race unless I learn to run a lot faster. Or a bike coach. Like, you need to figure out that. And then when it comes to strength training, if you're an ectomorph, then we might train 4 times a week for 30 to 40 minutes. If you're a mesomorph, we might train 2 times a week for 30 to 40 minutes. If you're an endomorph, we might train 5 times a week for 20 minutes. Like, we're going to develop the program based on who you are and what you want to do. But there is a universal starting point of just deciding that I'm going to strength train. I mean, the science is there. This is how we're going to age better. This is how we're going to live longer with more quality of life. So those kind of things. I've developed a few programs that are available on TrainingPeaks, and as there are other very good strength coaches that do this as well. So, but my first 30 days or my first 60 days, I try to have everybody do a very similar program. So they'll come to me and they're like, my right shoulder, it hurts off and on. I get a little bit of low back pain. I feel like my core is weak. And I'm like, okay, here's your first 60 days. After those first 60 days, then let's talk. Because once you get into a routine of daily mobility, 2 times a week or 3 times a week of strength training, then we really start seeing where our opportunities are. It's hard when somebody first comes to me and they haven't done a lot of structured strength training. You can't develop the next 6 months, because they're going to change really fast in the first 30, 60 days just by being consistent. And we might not change anything. If we had a lot of success after 60 days, we might just say, well, let's start it all again and just uptick all the weights, all the training loads just a little bit. Do exactly the same program we did for the last 60 days. Do it again.
Yeah.
And now, I'm sleeping better. I'm feeling better. My 10K times are coming down. I'm so much more comfortable on the bike. Like, when you're an endurance athlete and you add strength, again, it's the outcomes of the sport that we're looking for. Your bike coach, your triathlon coach should love that you're doing a strength program. It isn't overwhelming your training.
Right.
So you need to start at the beginning. It shouldn't be complicated. I mean, a lot of people that do what I do impress the world with very fancy exercises. They shouldn't be fancy. They should be very traditional, very systematic. It shouldn't feel like you're getting a new exercise every day. You got to get good at squatting. Yes. Deadlifting. Yes. Lateral lunges. Yes. Maybe if you want to do some pull-ups, there's big ways. It's going to take me 3 to 4 months to get somebody into a pull-up, but I value that, and there's just so many ways to do it, but it should be simple and it shouldn't feel overwhelming, and it shouldn't feel like, oh God, I have to go to the gym now. Like, having stuff at home is really helpful, and you don't need a lot of stuff. Couple of kettlebells and some bands, and you should be good to be able to get some stimulus at home.
How about some of the biggest mistakes you see?
Oh my God. The biggest mistake I would see is that people think if they can lift heavy weights in the gym, they're going to get faster on the bike. That couldn't be more wrong. I also don't think everyone should back squat. Back squatting is a skill that if you grew up back squatting, T.O. never back squatted, ever. We front squatted, we goblet squatted, we leg pressed, we deadlifted, but we did not back squat. His arms and spine are so long, and he didn't back squat growing up. Rinny is a beautiful back squatter. So she back squats with the best of them. Jeannie Metzler, she back squats. Taylor doesn't like back squatting. We don't back squat. She's one of the best female cyclists in the world. She does not back squat. She does the same exercise over and over again, hex bar deadlift. And it just gets heavier and heavier. And then sometimes we do 3 reps, and sometimes we get lighter and we do 15. Like, it's just, there's no, you can't say because Taylor does this, I should do that. You really have to find what do you like doing? I've got you, Dirk, doing a lot of overhead step ups, and just being able to support and elevate and decompress the spine. Back squatting is a compressive exercise. Back squatting is one of the biggest risks you can take, and the reward in our sports don't usually pay off. More of the NFL football players, that comes from a story from a lot of the strength coaches in the NFL. Their players were getting more injured in the weight room than they were on the field.
Oh, Lord.
And they really started reconsidering how they approach strength for those guys. So,
wow, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, how can people find more of your, advice out there? How can they reach out to you, and you have YouTube videos, anything out there they can learn more from you?
Every Monday at 6:45, I do a Monday mobility. I started before the pandemic. I'm now on week 209. 209 Mondays in a row that I have not missed a Monday. So Monday mobility is a great way to kind of get an idea of who I am.
Is that Instagram?
It's on YouTube, Fit Strength on YouTube. And so I'm just addicted to my stupid Monday mobility. So I keep doing that. I've got a lot of programs on TrainingPeaks. The best way to do that is to just email me if you don't know which program would be right for you. I always make time for people. If they email me, it might take me a couple days, but I'll usually have a good suggestion. I have 2 different formats of.
What's the email?
It's Erin at Fit Strength is the easiest email. ERIN at Fit Strength. But I also have a website, and there's a lot of, it's pretty clear what I think the best thing is. But every week there's probably 5 to 10 athletes that are like, which program should I do? And those are the ones that I want, because I love people who want to make sure they're not wasting their time. I hate wasting people's time.
That's awesome. Well, I love the gym too, because you got a big old AstroTurf in there. We can do sprints and everything, and it's a nice big open gym. It's awesome. Thanks, Erin. Hey, we're wishing all the luck to Taylor, and hope it's a safe race and you have a great experience out there. And thank you so much again for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I value so much what you bring to all of us, and thank you. It's just a real honor to be here.
Thanks for listening to Endurance Unlimited. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on your platform of choice to never miss new episodes. Also, be sure to leave a 5-star rating to let your coach and the algorithm know you're ready to dial in your training. Find more resources to help you take on your next challenge at trainingpeaks.com, or find us on social media at TrainingPeaks. Got questions? Leave a comment or send an email to podcast@trainingpeaks.com. Good luck in whatever you're training for, and trust the process to reach your potential.